Our text this morning is from Joshua chapter 6. It is now 27 verses in length. I will spare you today the burden of standing through all 27 verses. But if you are in possession of a Bible and you like to read along in your translation, then Joshua 6 is where we're at. That text is also, of course, going to be up on the screen. And if you wish to follow along in that fashion, I'm going to encourage you to do that as well. But we will start right away in verse 1. This is the word of the Lord. Now Jericho was tightly shut because of the sons of Israel. No one went out and no one came in. The Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have given Jericho into your hand with its king and the valiant warriors. You shall march around the city, all the men of war circling the city once. You shall do so for 6 days. Also, 7 priests shall carry 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark. Then on the 7th day, you shall march around the city 7 times, and the priests shall blow the trumpets. It shall be that when they make a long blast with the ram's horn, and when you hear the sound of the trumpet, all of the people will shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city will fall down flat, and the people will go up, every man straight ahead." So Joshua, son of Nun, called the priests and said to them, "Take up the ark of the covenant, and let 7 priests carry 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord." Then he said to the people, "Go forward and march around the city, and let the armed men go on before the ark of the Lord." And it was so, and that when Joshua had spoken to the people, the 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the Lord went forward and blew the trumpets, and the ark of the covenant of the Lord followed them. The armed men went before the priests who blew the trumpets, and the rear guard came after the ark, while they continued to blow the trumpets. But Joshua commanded the people, saying, "You shall not shout, nor let your voice be heard, nor let a word proceed from your mouth, until the day I tell you, shout, then you shall shout." So he had the ark of the Lord taken around the city, circling it once, and they came into the camp and spent the night in the camp. Now Joshua rose early in the morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord. The 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord went on continually and blew the trumpets, and the armed men went before them, and the rear guard came afterward, and while they continued to blow the trumpets. Thus the 2nd day they marched around the city and returned to the camp. And this continued on. And then in verse 15 it says, "On the 7th day they rose early at the dawning of the day and marched around the city in the same manner 7 times. Only on that day they marched around the city 7 times. And at the 7th time, when the priests blew the trumpets, Joshua said to the people, 'Shout, for the Lord has given you this city. The city shall be under the ban. It and all that is in it belongs to the Lord. Only Rahab the harlot and all who are with her in the house shall live, because she hid the messengers whom we sent. But as for you, only keep yourselves from the things under the ban, so that you do not covet them and take some of the things under the ban and make the camp of Israel accursed and bring trouble on it. But all the silver and all the gold and the articles of bronze and iron are holy to the Lord, and they shall go into the treasury of the Lord.' So the people shouted, and the priests blew the trumpets, and when the people heard the sound of the trumpet, the people shouted with a great shout, and the wall fell down flat, so that the people went up into the city, every man straight ahead, and they took the city. They utterly destroyed everything in the city, both man and woman, young and old, and ox and sheep and donkey with the edge of the sword. Joshua said to the 2 men who had spied out the land, "Go into the harlot's house and bring the woman and all that she has out of there, as you have sworn to her." So the young men who were spies went in and brought out Rahab and her father and her mother and her brothers and all that she had. They also brought out all her relatives and placed them outside the camp of Israel. They burned the city with fire and all that was in it. Only the silver and gold and articles of bronze and iron they put into the treasury of the house of the Lord. However, Rahab the harlot and her father's household and all that she had, Joshua spared, and she has lived in the midst of Israel to this day, for she hid the messengers whom Joshua sent to spy out Jericho. Then Joshua made them take an oath at that time, saying, "Cursed before the Lord is the man who rises up and builds this city Jericho. With the loss of his firstborn he shall lay its foundation, and with the loss of his youngest son he shall set up its gates." So the Lord was with Joshua, and his fame was in all the land. Pray with me. Only your words, only your will, only your glory. Amen. Well, last week, how many of you were here last week? Majority of you. Good. I had each of you write down some words on a piece of paper that represented, on one side, the mask that you present to other people in public. This is what you want people to see, what you want them to think about you, what you hope they find as characteristics in you. It's what you portray. It's a mask. And you wrote some words down, and I thank you for that. And then I had you flip the paper over, and I had you write down the words that the mask is hiding. Those would be aspects of yourself that you're not so proud of, aspects of yourself that you kind of don't want people to see about you. These would be words of shame, words that you just as soon not bother other people with in regards to who you are and what you deal with. And then you took those pieces of paper and you placed them in a plate at the base of the cross. And you did that as a declaration, a bit of a confession to Jesus and Jesus alone. You didn't put your names on the paper, so I saw the words, but I did not know whose words were whose. You presented them to Jesus as confession. Well, like I told you, I took those sheets, and what I want you to know is that I took and wrote down in a spreadsheet every word that I saw. There were 54 words in total written down, words of shame. We're not talking so much about the mask words now. We're talking about the ones that are inside, the stuff you're trying, not to put out there. 54 words, and of course, many of them were repeated more than once. And I would, it's already up there. And I don't know, you can't necessarily see all the words. I don't know. I should have probably made some of them bigger. But they're very visible? Okay. What I want you to understand is that the bigger the word, the more times it was repeated. And sometimes the word, like in the case of the word afraid, sometimes the word was fear, sometimes the word was fearful, and sometimes the word was afraid. So I, in some cases, amalgamated a few words because they essentially mean the same thing. But I want you to understand what you have in common. I want you to know that when you think about these things that you feel about yourself inside that you're not happy with, you're not alone. Except for the part where you isolate yourself because of these things. There are little islands all around the room that have exactly the same things on those islands. similar things. But because you're not proud of those things, because you don't particularly like those things, that's not something you want to have in common with other people. Those are things that you wish weren't there, that they would be gone, that they would go away. Well, this morning I would like to serve notice on these words. I would like us to acknowledge that while these feelings that we have may be real and shared by many, they do not represent what God desires for you. Consider the story that we just read for a moment. Jericho. And if you were here last week, you heard us talk about Rahab's house as being on the outside wall. So I want you to understand that there are two class tiers in this city. There's the inner sanctum, as it were, which is probably where the people of wealth, the people of class, the people of status live. They're the most protected. They're elevated to a certain degree. And then the outer ring is what we would, you'll excuse the humor of the phrase, the unwashed masses live. This is where the lower status society lives. And so Rahab, being a harlot, would have her house somewhere in that outer ring, and at least the way the story tells, probably right along the outer wall. Okay? That city is probably somewhere to the tune of about 6 to 9 acres in size. So those of you who understand acres, you can kind of wrap your mind around that a little bit. I want you to consider the story here that Joshua has been given instructions about how to take this city. This city has closed all its gates. The king caught wind of the fact that 2 spies were able to sneak in and sneak out without them being able to do anything about it. So they were already nervous. They were already cowering in their little booties in the first place. Their courage had melted away, we're told. And now 2 of them were able to sneak in and sneak out without them realizing it. And so the king's not going to have any of it anymore. The doors are being shut. Nobody's going anywhere. We are isolating. Joshua, after hearing from the Lord, marches his people to the wall surrounding the city and makes camp. And then on the morning, God gives Joshua the game plan. For 6 days, have your people in complete silence march around the perimeter of the city, approximately 6 to 9 acres in size. Show that slide, by the way, if you were to march around that at a normal pace, 3 miles an hour, that would probably take you 9.5 minutes. If you were a few thousand strong, having to go through the trouble of forming yourself up in some sort of military formation, complete with religious articles and potentially weapons of war, and then march at the pace of the slowest person in your entire formation, I still maintain that probably wouldn't take you more than 20, 25 minutes, maybe about 30 minutes just to set yourself up. So they got this task for the first 6 days done in an hour every day-ish. And on the 7th day, well, you do the math. You just multiply times 7. Or not necessarily, because that 30 minutes of setup, once it's done, it's done. Now you're just marching and marching and marching. But this is the part that I want to sort of wrap your mind around. If you do these things, God says, the walls will come down. We haven't taken a thing yet, God. You've promised us this land. There are people living here. They scared us 40 years ago. We said, maybe we're not ready to do this. We wandered around for 40 years. Our forefathers died because they were too scared to take the land. Now we're here. That doesn't mean that we're feeling it. And your first set of instructions has nothing to do with conventional warfare whatsoever. No other battle plan has ever come close to sounding like this, and no other battle plan will ever sound like this. This is not a battle plan. This is a test in trust. This city represents the beginning of God's great promise to give the Israelites a land of their own. And he has promised, and this is the important part, and this is why I say this is not really a battle plan. He has promised that the battle is already won. In other words, there is no battle. We're going to start things off with you understanding one thing about this promise. It has nothing to do with you and your effort. It has everything to do with the fact that my word is gold. I said that I would do this for you, and I'm going to do this for you. Yeah, you've got a part coming. Your obedience is necessary, but your strength is not going to win anything. That means that conventional warfare is unnecessary. Do you understand, by the way, that a group of wandering Israelites with 40 years of Sinai wilderness experience, a couple of genuine bona fide, battles, encounters, war, maybe only just recently crafted themselves some spears and some shields perhaps, but they have nothing to take down this wall. Nothing. I'm guessing that if they were thinking in their own strength, in their own mind, in their own wisdom, they would say, the only way we're getting in this city is to figure out how to take the gates down, how to break our way in. But God said, the battle is already yours. The only thing that you have to do is 2 words. 2 words and 2 words only. Hear and obey. Hear and obey. Hear and obey. I would argue with you that this is one of the major messages of the entire Old Testament. That's all. And what he's asking them to do is bizarre, but it ain't difficult. It isn't beyond them. He didn't ask them to turn water into wine. He simply said, march around the wall. When the time comes, make a little noise. That's bizarre. Welcome to following God. And I would ask you this morning to let me shift the metaphor that we've been working with up to this point. We've talked about a mask, okay? Not ready for that one yet. We will get there very soon, though. I want you to take the idea of the mask, put it aside for the moment, and I want you to think about these words of shame that you wrote down. I want you to think about them, the words that keep you down, the words that prevent you from living in victory. Let's call them bricks. Bricks that have, with time, built up a wall around you. Call it a stronghold, if you will. And I'm willing to bet that you don't want to be afraid anymore. I'm willing to bet that you don't want to feel ashamed or broken or inadequate. You want the opposite of those things. Now you can bring that slide up, Arlene. The second one there, yeah. I can't read them very good from here, but that's tiny. But on the screen there, I'm hoping that you can see these words. I have on the left side placed the most common of your words of shame in the order in which they were repeated. And like I say, not that you're unfamiliar with them, but afraid, ashamed, broken, inadequate, insecure, angry, lazy. These were the things that were repeated at least more than twice. Over on the right are the words which loosely represent their opposites. Not all words have perfect opposites. Some of them have words that are opposite in the ballpark. We have brave, calm, healed, able, confident, happy, energetic. Many of these words were on the first side of your paper when it came to what you wanted people to see in you when they came into your contact. But back to these shame words. They represent the bricks of your wall, the stronghold that keeps you from claiming the promise that God has already given. And I want to remind you of something. Some of you, maybe this is the first time you heard it, but I'm willing to bet that the majority of you in the room, this is a reminder. And I don't have the verse for this, Arlene. You don't need to go hunting for it. You can just leave it as it is. 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7 has this to say on our topic. For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a sound mind. So, really need to embrace this, people. Whatever you want to say about the fact that there is fear inside you, the first thing that you need to recognize is that it didn't come from God. The number one common word in the room, in you, didn't come from your God. John 10:10 says this. This is Jesus talking now. Although one could argue it's all Jesus talking, so let's not go there. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they might have life and have it to the full. The full. That they might have life to the full. Do you have life to the full? Or do you have life to the near empty? Do you find life rich, delightful, rewarding, inspiring? Or do you find that you're only hanging on by a thread? Chances are, for many of you, I would even argue most of you, the answer would be, depends on the day, Pastor. Depends on the day. But a few of you, I think the only thing for a long time that you've known is running on empty and hanging on by a thread. So, if Jesus promised these things, how do we claim the promise? How do we bring down the wall? And I think the answer is there, in those bizarre instructions that God gave to the Israelite people. The answer is to know His voice better than any of the other voices that are currently swimming around in your head and in your heart. And then, on top of that, once you're able to identify that voice, to be able to do what that voice says to a T. Let me give you an example. There's a possibility that a few of you, no, maybe not many, a few of you in the room, and this is just one example. You can make this other examples. I'm just going to use this one. you're saying to yourself, I feel worthless. And the reality of that statement is that if you're uttering that, chances are it's true. I feel worthless. When one is expressing their feelings, chances are that's a true statement. It's how I feel. And I'm telling you, this is how I feel. But do you understand that that feeling has a way, being a true statement, has a way of bringing along with it a lie related to the statement about how you feel? What's the lie? I am worthless. I feel worthless, potentially true statement. I am worthless, lie from the pit of hell. They sound so similar, Scott. That's why the enemy is a father of lies, a master of it. It's the same work that he did in the garden. When he told Eve a whole bunch of things that were true, mixed with a thing or two that was a big fat lie. He's a master at it. Why do I say I am worthless is a big fat lie? When God made you, he said it was very good from the beginning. He wasn't just talking about Adam and Eve alone. Don't believe that lie. He was talking about humanity. He made you, and he don't make junk. It is very good. He says that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. Doesn't sound like words we would attribute to worthlessness. He says he has imprinted his very image upon all humanity. We're talking about everybody. We're not just talking about believers now. We're talking about humanity at large. All of the people who don't know Jesus. All of the people who have lived all their lives godless. They are image bearers by their very design. You can't tell me that the word worthless has anything to do with that. Jesus sent his Son into the world for the specific purpose of being able to spend forever with each and every one of you. This is not the kind of thing that anyone would do for that which was worthless. Are you hearing me yet? This is one example of a feeling that drags a lie with it. There might be others in the room. I feel useless. I feel like I can't pay my bills. Oh, Scott, but I can't pay my bills. I'm going to sit here and call you liar, liar, pants on fire. There is a difference between feeling like you can't pay your bills and not actually being able to pay your bills. Why do I say that this one would be a lie when some of you are telling me, Scott, that's exactly where I'm at? Because I'm telling you it doesn't have to be that way. You who is not worthless, who when you were made, God said it was very good, who took the trouble to send his Son in the world to die on your behalf, has said that I will take care of all of your needs according to my riches and glory. That's the truth. How he goes about doing that, I'll grant you, is sometimes a little unconventional. Sometimes the way he takes care of business is he taps you on the shoulder in the 11th hour. Sometimes the way he helps you take care of business is to the person to your left or the person to your right, which, if you're living isolated on your little island, you don't particularly like. There is a difference between the way you feel and necessarily the way you are. And this has everything to do with how the walls come down. God's truth trumps the lie your feelings drag with it. So you are allowed to feel the way you feel. And don't let anybody tell you that you're not supposed to feel that way. That's unfair, and it's just flat out not true. Your feelings are real. But recognize that your feelings have a bad habit. They drag lies with them. Are you hearing this now finally? Where do you think these Israelites are at, marching around the wall? What do you think they're feeling? You think they're feeling confident? You think they're feeling, oh, this is the perfect plan. Yeah, I got all those nasty people living in that city, and the way we're going to make them all go away is we're going to march around in silence for 6 days and then scream at the top of our lungs on the 7th day and watch the walls fall down. That sounds like what my feelings are saying. No, my feelings are probably saying this is the stupidest idea that anybody ever came up with. I can't for the life of me imagine that anything good is going to come from this ridiculous behavior, and I wish that Joshua, for the life of him, would come up with a real plan. That's the feelings. That's probably how they feel in varying degrees. Oh, I'm sure there's some really devout folk in the room who are like, hey man, the Lord's will be the Lord's will. Hallelujah. There's a few thousand people here, folks. I can assure you they're struggling. They did the first time. How do you think Rahab is feeling? You think she is completely at peace with the fact that the walls of the city, the only city she's likely ever known, are about to come down, and the only people she's likely ever known in her life are all about to go to their grave? I'm guessing she's not too thrilled about that idea. And I'm also willing to bet that she's thinking to herself, I feel like I'm going to die today. I know they made me a promise. We did the whole scarlet cord hanging out the window thing. But that doesn't mean they're good for their word. It just means they got a big bad God who takes care of business for them. And just how it might happen to be that I'm the business. So she's probably got feelings of inadequacy as well. Feelings of fear as well. She's lived her entire life as a harlot, and now she's looking at the people of God. She's probably feeling a little ashamed as well. But she declared the truth. Your God is the one true God. She made the commitment to stand beside them at the expense of all of her own people, even to the point where she told a lie to her king about where the spies were at. You hear what I'm doing this morning? I'm helping you identify that your feelings are valid, but what accompanies the feelings are what keep you down. And the only way to deal with those things that accompany your feelings, called lies, is the truth. And the truth of the matter is, it's not that bad. Things look rough, but God. I feel tore up inside, but God. I got this thing on my leg that's been there for 7 years that won't go away, but God. I haven't been able to make a friend for the last 25 years, but God. You want to go down the list? We could talk about money problems. We could talk about relational problems. We could talk about emotional problems. We could talk about health and sickness. We could talk about finances. We could do it all day long. But I need you to understand that God has given you His Word, and His Word declares that He will not leave you or forsake you. That neither anything in this created world can separate you from the love that is in Christ Jesus. And that same faith that He is asking you to hold on to is a faith that saw these people experience the victory promised to them at the end of the day. Notice what happens here in the story. We don't have time to go through all the details, but they obeyed. Okay? We will come to an example next week, no, 2 weeks from today, where they didn't obey. I don't want to go there just yet. For the moment, I want you to understand that the way the chapter reads, they obeyed. Okay? The walls came down. Jericho was completely defeated. Notice that the one woman, Rahab, who dared to believe back in chapter 2, not only saw her city walls come down, but she saw her own walls of shame come down as well. She was grafted into the family of God, and today is remembered not as a woman of shame, but a woman of faith. She obeyed the Lord and ignored the lies in her head. The lies which said she is a harlot. The lies which said you live on the edge of town. The lies which said you are shameful. You will never rise above any of this. She ignored all those voices. She zeroed in on the voice of truth. The one voice that was in her head that said, I will never leave you or forsake you. Trust in me, he says to Rahab, and he says to you too. Trust in me with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to me, and I will make your paths straight. Folks, if I spend the rest of my life figuring out how to do that, how to exercise that, how to practice that, that's something worth pursuing. Because this promise, this world has nothing compared to this promise. So if I'm sloppy at it between now and the day they pat my face with a shovel, that's better than me giving up on it altogether. That's better than me believing the lies. That's better than me giving in to the feelings that might be true, but are not necessarily something to be followed. Notice that Rahab and the Israelites, up to this point, did exactly what God said. It wasn't a case of, well, I did some of what he said, but the hard stuff I ignored. I did the stuff that made sense in my head, but that weird stuff, They followed him fully. And the temptation for you and me today is to do the parts of what God says that make sense in our own earthly minds. But you know that following God, by the way, is not a negotiation. It's a surrender. It's a surrender of your will to the one who knows what's best for you and is only capable, and is the only one capable of bringing your walls down. So let's wrap it all up. If you're here today and you wrote down some words that you know have been holding you back, keeping you from receiving what God obviously promises to you, but you would like to not live like that, live like you're running on empty, live like the fullness of his promises are for you, then I want you to stand up right here today. Some of you may not be entirely sure you heard what I said. If you're tired of living life in part and want to live the life in full that Jesus has promised you, I want you to stand up today. This is the path from shame to joy. And I want you now, those of you who stood, as long as what I'm saying agrees with you, I want you to repeat the words after me. What we're going to do here today is we're going to start, not finish, but start the work of moving from shame to joy, recognizing that it is a work of the Holy Spirit, not of your own. Repeat after me. I am no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I choose this day to hear and follow his voice. as I have in days gone by. I commit to learning His truth and wisdom. I speak to my bricks. You no longer hold me in. Instead, I claim the promise of victory over everything that has held me back. Finally, I choose this day to renew this claim whenever I feel weak or small. Hear my declaration this day, O Lord my God. Amen. You may be seated. Do you understand that to live like these people are living, that sometimes you're going to have to say something like that multiple times a day? Okay. If you're telling me that at least half of my battle is just acknowledging the truth that's already in my head and heart by declaring it out loud in the presence of other people, well, sign me up. That's as easy as marching around a wall 6 times and making a little noise. 7 times, pardon me. It's as easy as that. It's learning to separate the lies from the truth. Those of you who've been asking the question, why have I been living with this for so long? And please, I am not marginalizing what some of you are going through. Some of what you are going through is deep, long, and severe. And this is not in any way, shape, or form to marginalize what you're going through or to make light about the struggle that you've experienced. But folks, it's about separating the truths from the lies. It is also living in a constant state of confession about what you're dealing with. This is not confession of, well, I did this bad thing, and so, say a couple prayers for me. That's maybe part of it. But you've heard me before talk about confession being so much larger than that. Out of the abundance of your heart, the mouth speaks. Whatever is in your heart, everything from gratitude to grief, speaking that is what we call confession. It is the release of your heart with words. And it's good. Who should you confess to? Okay, I guess it depends what it is you're about to divulge. Some truth isn't handled well by everybody. If you got deep, dark uglies, and you find the brand new Christian in the room who's struggling themselves, and you barf up all over them, chances are you won't be doing you or them any favors whatsoever. There's something we got taught in the Army. Maybe you've heard this before, I don't know. It's also a kind of a corporate thing, I think. Pass your positives down, pass your negatives up. If you're dealing with things that are deep, dark, and ugly, find someone who is more mature in the faith than you. Somebody who can handle your deep, dark uglies. What should you be passing down to the people who are not there yet? You should be passing the positives down. Is that a generality? Yeah. Does it work in absolutely every situation? No. I'm trying to give you some tools, some practical everyday tools. You've got to talk about your bricks. You have to be invested in the idea of seeing those bricks come down so that you can all live on one island together. And so that you can build boats. We're going to take the metaphor all the way to the end now. For other people to get to your island. But if you're all living on your own individual islands, everything that I just said means nothing. When When are you done feeling the way you feel? When are you done believing the lies? I want you to spend the rest of this week dwelling on this idea of life to the full. One where Jesus grants you his fullness of joy. Do you deserve it? Well, no, but that's grace, people. The whole Christian faith is founded on the idea of grace. What do we mean when we say grace? It means getting what you don't deserve when what you deserve is bad. So let's all get past the what we deserve mindset and embrace the grace that we have already been given. Today, your walls can come down. Pray with me.